That's my job, provide that access.
Well, we appreciate you coming along. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And don't forget to ask about the poodle skirt.
That's right.
The greater Bemidji area that'll guide our development into the future.
Members, county commissioners, they're appointed by their respective bodies.
Honey, or it can be local, you and I creating a business that then we take to a local perspective.
If you have a question, call and ask, we'll help you.
Nobody knows about it, and it's
Well, the
great
word's out now. Word's out now.
Your entire operation, how to bring people in. So let's get involved. Economic development is one of the most important tasks we have.
It is. It is.
It's great to hear about.
Thanks again.
Mr. President.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve.
It's been a pleasure, Louis.
Although she was reluctant, I've talked Becky Livermore into coming along, and Becky has been in the Master Gardener program for many years, as we'll hear.
Oh, I'm old.
No, I didn't mean it that way. Becky, thanks for coming.
I'm happy to be here. Really, truly, I am. Because the Master Gardener program is, I think, a great addition to our community, our pool of community volunteers here in the county.
Otherwise, it would never be on Inside Bemidji,
Okay.
where it's making our community an even better place.
And, of course, this is a wonderful time to be able to come and talk about gardening because we are right in the midst of it.
What she means is it's finally summer in Bemidji.
Finally, yeah. Although, of course, now that it's nice enough to garden, now we have to combat all the mosquitoes that have suddenly...
But that's all right. We
Come
live
on.
here for the summer, so we're
I
not going to
guess.
complain. Becky, I want to talk everything about Master Gardener, but let's talk first. Let's meet you.
All right. What do you want to
Okay.
know?
Well, were you born in Bemidji?
No, I was born in Boston, actually, which of course is straight west of here. But I grew up on a small farm about an hour and a half between here and Fargo. And I lived there
Okay.
for the first 18 years of my life. My parents were small farmers.
Okay.
And then I went on to college at Moorhead State,
Yes,
and
yes,
I
yes.
became a high school teacher.
All right.
And after that, I taught high school. I taught actually...
Whereabouts? Where'd you go?
Well, I was down in southern Minnesota, and in fact, after teaching for about 3-4 years, that's when I met my husband, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And he...
In what city was that?
That was in Austin. That was his hometown. He was out of university at that time, and we met, and you know how one thing leads to another, and
That's what
about
happens. That's what young people do.
a year later, we were married, and then I continued teaching while he finished at the university with his PhD program. Anyway, long story short, we have been in Bemidji for almost 30 years now.
Wow.
We
good.
came up from Cedar
Good.
Rapids, Iowa. Brian did his family practice residency in Cedar Rapids.
Okay.
And of course, it's really been a great life. After the residency, then we of course had to decide where to live.
Yes.
And that was just I think a real thrill to be able to realize that we could really find a wonderful place to live. And
Go
we came
anywhere,
30
I would
years
imagine.
30 years ago, and we're
Uh-huh.
still here because we like it so well.
No, I live here because I like it so
Yes.
well. So
But
what year would that have been? When
well,
you came to Bemidji?
we came the summer of '84.
Uh-huh.
But I want you to know, though, that I really do have a long history with Bemidji.
Well, where you grew up wasn't really that far away.
No,
right?
and we'd come over here on occasion for little family reunions. We go to Diamond Point Park, and we'd be in Bemidji for a day and just love it. But really, what my history is, maybe more so, is that when my mother was 19, she lived in Winger, which is a small town west of here,
Okay.
and she came to Bemidji and went to the normal school then.
Which was the early version of BSU.
That's right.
Okay.
And she was
I
here.
only know that because I've seen it on the sweatshirts. You know, they have the list of all the names that it had.
And she, after I think it
Normal,
was
right.
only a year's training, she became a teacher, and she would teach out in the little these country schools.
That's right. I think that's what they specialized in originally.
Yes, they did.
Right? They trained teachers to
Yes.
Okay.
And then, of course, she met my father, who was a farmer, and then we lived in this little farming community called Gary, Minnesota, which no one, of course, has heard of because it's only about 200 people, but that was the community I was from.
Well, your husband, Brian.
Yes.
Now, why did he choose Bemidji? You had known about it.
I
but
did.
He didn't know about it.
No,
I
he didn't.
suppose.
He was raised in, as I say, he was raised in Austin. But what happened is that at the time that we were making this decision as to where we wanted to live, there was a family practitioner who was already practicing here in Bemidji, and he had gone through the Cedar Rapids program a few years earlier.
Okay.
And so our logic was that, well, you know, it might be nice to practice with someone who has had the same background. Exactly.
Yeah,
So
sure.
we came up here then the summer before and practiced, or Brian worked with him for a couple of weeks. And we stayed at a cabin out on Wolf Lake, and we were here a couple of weeks, went
How'd
to the
you find it?
playhouse.
How did you find it?
You know,
This is
I'm not
before
even sure.
email. Well, I bet he helped you guys.
I think he did,
He probably
yes.
helped.
And so we spent a couple of weeks here in the Bemidji area, and we loved it, and we've been here ever since.
Well, that's great. Well, that's almost 30 years. And how long have you been involved with the Master Gardeners?
I've been a master gardener for probably, I'm going on my 27th year.
Okay.
So it's,
So it was pretty shortly, how do you say it in English? It wasn't long after you arrived in Bemidji that you got involved in the Master Gardener
that's right.
program.
In fact, I feel so fortunate. What happened is that the Master Gardener organization was established in Bemidji in like the early to mid 80s. There were approximately
So it was a brand new program in
was,
this county?
It was. Clark Montgomery was our extension agent or our extension educator at the time, and Clark was an important figure for all of us who took the training then. But there was a group of about 4 master gardeners who were already here. And then in, I think it was like 86 or 87, I took the training. It was a large class. We actually took the training here in Bemidji. The teachers from the university came up and they actually gave us our courses in person.
They weren't doing it on the internet.
No! And see, now, of course, all the training from the Master Garden program,
Is
by and
online.
large, in greater Minnesota, it's all online.
So these people came from the cities?
They did.
Okay.
By and large, they
Now,
came
the
up.
name you mentioned, Clark,
Clark Montgomery.
did he work out of the cities or was he up here?
He was in...
So they had someone local.
Yes, we did. We had our own... In fact, we had
Do we still have that?
3. We had 3 extension agents or extension educators in Bemidji and in Beltrami County at that time.
Let me explain what we're talking about because, see, I'm an expert on this because I've been on the webpage, so the Master Gardeners organization operates in 50 states and Canada and in the UK. And in our county, this is the Beltrami County Master Gardeners, and we'll get to that a little bit later. The program is under the University of Minnesota Extension.
That's right.
So now that you're caught up, was Clark, was he with the University of Minnesota?
Yes.
And yet they had an office up here?
We had an office
And an
here.
extension office?
That's right.
I got
We
it.
did.
Okay.
We did. And there were, as I say, there were at least 3 extension educators in the office.
Are there still any up here?
No.
So they don't do that anymore?
No, we don't. The county decided that it wasn't going to be a part of that program any longer. We still have an extension office, but which is out at the fairgrounds
Okay,
for Beltrami.
and I want to talk about the organization, but also, you've been doing this now for 27 years, and a lot of other things around town, right? You were on some town boards,
Yeah.
and so you've been contributing to the community over all this time, and we thank you for that.
I find it very satisfying to be a part of a community. You see, the years before, we were never in any community long enough. You know, Brian was in school primarily, and you know, you're there for 2 or 3 years and you don't really become a part of a community. So when we moved to Bemidji, here was our chance.
I know exactly what you mean, because that's my background as
Yeah,
well. First 12 years of my working life, I moved every 2 years, and then I slowed down and only moved like every 3 or 4 years. So you're right, you're never part of a community.
You can't. You don't. you realize that it's a short stay. Well, for example, when we were in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, we knew it was only for a 4-year extension, residency program, or was it 3? It seemed like 4. And so you don't do these things. You sure you find some friends, you have neighbors, but you don't really become
You don't
involved
get
in your
those-
community.
Hey, we're gardening. You don't get those deep roots.
That's right. We'll talk
We'll talk
gardening lingo.
Lingo.
Right.
That's great. Actually, my grandfather was a big gardener, and so we grew up around his big garden. He had been, I guess he was a supervisor of some kind in the Louisville and Nashville railroad shops.
Oh, okay.
And all I know is he could do anything with wood and metal. We wanted to go as a family, not with him, but my parents' family and the boys out west on these 2 and 3 week vacations. So he built us a trailer, just built it, metal. He pounded the metal and got it hot and all. Anyway, he
Talented man.
never worked after the Great Depression.
Oh.
And he wasn't that old. I guess he was, I'm just going to guess, 50 or so.
Mhm.
But he put in this huge garden
Mhm.
because he had grown up as a farmer and kept it for years. So, we really treasured, not even knowing, we just knew it was good, all the fresh vegetables. So anyway, I have a great place in my heart for gardening and how good it can be.
Do you have one now?
We plant trees,
Mhm.
and we fight the deer so
Oh,
hard
yes.
that unless I put up some kind of a fence that I'm not ready to even think about.
Let's talk about deer for a minute.
All right, let's talk about deer for a minute. You start.
I will. Well, one of the things, first of all, let's just say that our mission as master gardeners is to help the home gardener, not necessarily by going out and tilling and doing that kind of thing, but we help them by answering questions and by education, that type of thing. Okay.
Sure.
Well,
You have this knowledge base that you impart based on their interests.
That's right. So we go out and we give a lot of presentations, and we have a lot of discussion with gardeners. I think many times it happens when I'm grocery shopping, which is a real thrill.
Yeah.
Grocery shopping becomes
You put those pictures on your articles in the byline and we're the pioneer, huh?
That's right. So they can identify us, and they say, "Aren't you a master gardener?" And we say, "Sure." And then they say, "Well,
I have an aphid.
I have an aphid. What do I do with this?" Okay, but what I really wanted to say about deer is that
Yes.
when we go out and give talks, and we say, okay, we give our presentation and we say, "Are there any questions?" I would be willing, I'm not a gambling person, but I would lay money on this one. The first question is, what can we do about the deer?
Yeah, good question. Mayor Albrecht said in a city council meeting a few weeks ago that we need to have a deer roundup. And I think she was a little irritated because she told me that she told the council, she told us when I was there in the audience, that they had eaten everything.
Oh, and see, she's a big-time gardener.
Yeah.
And
she was
so-
a little irritated with the
Peeved.
little deer.
She was
good word.
peeved.
Well, they think the hostas at our place are the salad bar.
Well, the deer like hosta, like we like chocolate. I mean, that's how I kind of
okay.
compare that.
So Kathy, that's my wife, Kathy. She's out there with her
yeah.
squirt, keep them away from it. So no, we are not gardening. We're busy in a struggle with the deer for global vegetable supremacy. They want it, and we're trying to hang on to our hostas.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Because we have found that there are very few things. Number one, there are very few things a hungry deer will not eat.
Really?
Oh yes, and
Wow.
so the other hint about deer, we can talk more about this later. But the other thing about deer is that they are like cattle. They get used to things. They get used to a path. They get used to people. They get used to dogs. So what you have to do in order to keep them a little shy, and we want them shy. We don't want them tame. What you have to do is you have to keep changing what you do. For example, sometimes people have luck keeping deer away by putting bunches of hair human hair,
And
dog hair.
but you got to change your strategy.
Okay, so now that works maybe for a week.
Okay.
Then the next week, maybe you take your radio out there and you turn the radio on at night. But then pretty soon,
The neighbors are.
well, you can't, obviously, you have to be careful about doing some of these things in the middle of town, but the problem is then the next week you see the deer dancing and oops, we gotta quit doing that. So, I mean, you just have to always keep changing
All right,
your
good advice.
techniques. But
Change what you do. I know that Kathy just has this spray.
yes,
She says at least it'll send them down the block.
there are some good ones. There's for example, there's Plant Skid. We recommend that. It doesn't wash off, but you always have to spray new growth.
Well, she always does it when it, she thinks the rain washes it off.
Oh,
but I don't
well,
know.
it maybe does some products,
All I
but not
know
Plant
is
Skid.
she had one a couple years ago, and when she would spray it around, I couldn't go outside
Oh,
or
it stunk,
open the
didn't it?
windows.
Yeah, I know.
Now she's gone to a new product now, and
Not quite so bad.
it's really not a problem.
Oh,
so.
because see, that's part of what keeps them away is the smell.
Yeah, but it was about to keep her husband away.
Well, you just have to go on an extended vacation.
That's all you get on deer. We're going to talk about master gardeners now.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about the University of Minnesota Extension. They're no longer up here anymore.
Not in our county.
But they still back you up
Yes.
through the
yes.
miracle of electronic communication.
That's right. That's
right. What's their organization like down in the cities? Because you must tap them for specialist knowledge. Or...
Well, we do. They of course have people down there that are specialists in everything, from bugs to grass to to just about everything. So if we have questions, we can get in touch with someone. As far as the actual Master Gardener program, there are only a couple of people who are part of that program who are with the organization. So that isn't very many.
Okay.
But we have a large number of Master Gardeners in the whole state of Minnesota. We must have between 2,000 and 3,000.
Okay.
So that's wonderful. It's a very successful program.
Now you guys have, excuse me to interrupt you have meetings here in Bemidji.
We do. We have our own group. We have approximately 18 to 20 active members at this time. We meet on a monthly basis. And the reason we do that is because there are several projects that happen throughout the year that we all participate in. And so we have to have a little bit of organization. And that's why we have to have, for example, I'm the chair this year. We have to have a chair and a treasurer and a secretary, recording secretary, but it's to keep it kind of loosely, woven. We don't stand on.
Do people come in from the rest of the county very much, or is it mainly around Bemidji?
You mean as far as membership?
Yeah.
Well,
18 to 20 people.
Unfortunately, we are pretty much close to Bemidji. I think it's just because this is where most of the population happens to be.
Sure.
But we have to differentiate too. I'd like to point out, we have in our county some wonderful garden clubs.
Okay, that's something I didn't know. Tell us some more about
Well,
that.
Garden Club is a group of gardeners who love to get together and exchange ideas amongst themselves, maybe organize tours, but they primarily garden and they also will do projects, beautification projects. For example, our Bemidji Garden Club has taken care of the library, and you know how beautiful it is. They planted and replanted, and so, but the difference between the garden club and the Master Gardeners is in our mission. Our mission is to educate. The garden club's mission is to beautify and to have an organization where they can be with each other and share knowledge and have fun together.
Yeah. So they, I'm sure, share information.
Oh, sure.
But it's not their main
It isn't their main purpose.
Their main purpose is they have common interests that they
right.
share, and they can enjoy being with people that have that same
That's
interest.
right, exactly. Whereas our goal is, or our mission is to reach out to other gardeners and to help solve some of their problems. And with that in mind, that's why we have a lot of the programs set up that we have. For example, the call line and these things. But we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, we will. I want to talk about your members now.
Okay.
I in learning a little bit about the program, I online saw so many articles on so many different subjects. I mean,
Yes.
gardening is a huge,
It is.
it's a very wide range of subjects. So, do people tend to specialize in certain areas, or based
Well,
on their interests?
I think so.
Or
I think so.
how does that work?
In fact, one year we sent a list around to our membership and we said, okay, we want you to put down what you think you are the best in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, we're too Scandinavian. Nobody wanted to say I'm really good at
I'm
something.
good at it.
But what they did say is, for example, it came around to me and I said, okay, I can answer questions on annual flowers and annual vegetables and, you know, but don't call me about trees, okay? Whereas then another member would say, oh, I know a lot about shrubs and trees, and you know, so we do tend to do that. But when it comes to writing for the paper or giving presentations, we all have things that we feel more comfortable talking about and
Sure,
researching
sure.
and this sort of thing. So
What do you do, Becky? Do you decide, for example, all that great list of pioneer articles? Do you decide May's your month, or you sign up, or how do you guys just spread that work around?
Kathy Peck is one of our master gardeners. Actually, Kathy has been a master gardener for probably 30 years. She was one of the first ones here in Bemidji.
Mm-hmm.
And Kathy is in charge of the Pioneer, organizing the newspaper articles.
Okay.
And she will meet with her crew, and there are roughly 6 or 8 of us who contribute. And we'll sit around this table and have coffee, and we'll say, okay, who wants to sign up for May? And somebody will say, well, yeah, I think I'll do May, and I'll write about. You know, you generally come out with something you think you'd like to research, or something you feel comfortable writing about. And before you know it, we have 4 months filled in.
Okay, good.
That's how we do it.
And is this seasonal?
You know it is. We start in,
Or
think
mainly your activities?
I think it's
seasonal?
March. Are you talking about all our activities or the
Kinda.
newspaper?
Well, let's talk about the newspaper first.
Okay, for the newspaper, we generally write from March through Christmas, I think, or November, anyway. Excuse me.
All right. So it's kind of seasonal. Because
It is. We take a
when
little
the
break.
Bemidji winter hits, we all kind of do different things.
Excuse me.
Sure. So, yeah, I've had you talking for a while. So, okay, there's 18 to 20 of you guys. You meet once a month. You specialize kind of as you need to, and you end up doing research on things, and so you kind of learn about that. And then in these meetings, you decide how to cover your activities.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you work, if you will.
Excuse me, I have a
So-
frog.
You're talking too much. Need some water?
Well, might not be a bad idea.
Well, we'll...
I'm not used to being so talkative. I'm really a very quiet person, you know. Oh, goodness.
Becky's a very quiet person. For those of you who know her,
They know
you
that's
can attest to that.
they know that's not the truth.
So,
Oh, that's great. Where were we?
we've been talking about the organization, and I want to start talking about some of the programs.
Oh, yes.
now.
Okay.
We'll talk about some of the programs, and I thought maybe we'd also then talk about how we connect with the community.
Sure.
So, freshly informed from some of the web pages, a varietal trial.
Yes,
That
that's
was
one
pretty
thing.
interesting to me.
Yes, and it is interesting to do. Now, I have not done it, but several of our members have, and here's how that works. It comes from the State Master Gardener Program, from the university, and they will say, we are going to do a varietal trial on snap beans. And if you want to participate, you know, you can sign on the dotted line. At the appropriate time, we will send you half a dozen different kinds of beans, seeds. And then the way it works is that then
Thanks,
we
Will.
will, thank you,
Try that.
then we will,
The gins mixed in with kidding you.
Let me see
Sorry.
now here.
Yeah.
Nope, straight water.
So they come to you and they say, okay, there's not enough varieties in the seed catalog, so we got 3 more, and
Well-
we think they're good for up in Bemidji
Well,
where
see,
it's
that's-
cold.
that's the
and
thing.
That's really the point.
Gardening in northern Minnesota is very different from gardening in southern
Right,
Minnesota.
it's this zones, right? Yeah,
Very
yeah,
different.
yeah.
And planting beans, and I'll use them as an example because I just put mine in the other day. Beans need warm soil to
Okay,
germinate.
okay.
If you plant them too early,
You've wasted them.
because they rot in the ground. So
Okay.
what they may be trying, for example, with this bean varietal test, is to see, they'll say, okay, put them in ground that is 50 degrees and see what happens. Will they germinate or will they not germinate? You have to, of course, keep track.
Uh-huh.
And you'd say, well, I planted 20 seeds and only 10 of them germinated.
So
you
it's
have to
kind of
keep
like
track of
being
that.
part of a research project.
Absolutely. So
Uh-huh.
it's very interesting.
So they're trying, in that example, I'm just thinking, might be an example where they're trying to push the envelope and give you something you can plant a little earlier,
Sure.
and therefore get more yield
Sure.
because it's got longer.
Sure.
higher
Any
summertime.
of these kinds of things.
Yeah.
So participating in those trials is one way that we can help gardening in general, because, and particularly though for our part of the country.
Yeah, well, the way the spring's been here, something that germinated quickly and got moving would be very good
It
this
would,
year,
wouldn't
right?
it? We keep telling people though, not to worry, that once that soil does warm up, and it is getting there,
Uh-huh,
the plants will just shoot out of the ground. Then they basically catch up. So-
They know they're behind and get moving.
Well, you have to threaten them sometimes. You see, you go out there and you say,
All right, see? Esoteric
Grow.
gardening knowledge being passed on to the community right here on Inside Bemidji.
or maybe you go outside some fine morning and you sing, or something to kind of get them a little revved up.
They might, if I sing,
You don't
they might,
sing?
they might wilt.
Oh, okay. Well, don't come and sing in my garden.
So we talked about varietal trials, which is kind of a research project.
Yeah.
Shoreland work.
Yeah. We've had members who have property on lakes, and they have experimented with different kinds of plantings to, of course, hold the shoreland in place, because we know, of course, about erosion and how a lot of times it's a real problem for particularly some lakes.
Right.
And so they would experiment with different types of
And
plants.
return it to natural plants as
That's
well,
right,
to
right.
get rid of the
Not some of these
invasives.
exotics. We don't want the invasives. We
Yeah,
want
yeah.
things that are native, native plantings. So yes, we do some of that. Yeah.
The, where the old Lucan store was, across from right across
from
from the
BSU?
Carnegie, right across from the Carnegie,
Oh,
and it
you-
was a county extension
Sure.
office.
Yes,
for a
that's where
while.
the extension office was.
Didn't those guys used to sell stuff for shoreland?
I don't believe it was. It wasn't
It wasn't
extension.
there. It was another office, and I wonder if they still did that. Somewhere there was a county office.
It might have been. Was it Soil and Water? Who sold?
I bet that's who it was. Anyway, I don't remember who that was, but somebody used to sell those things. That was one question I had, and the other is Jerry Stinsing, who is like Mr. Tree.
Yes, he is. Wonderful
He's
fellow.
fabulous at what he does.
Yes.
Is he part of your program?
No.
Or no?
No.
So he's in the professional category now?
Well,
that he's
yes, I believe
retired?
so. He's retired now, but he's a wonderful resource.
Yeah, good. Well, he knows his tree.
Yes, he sure does.
Other programs.
Yes. What else?
You did some work with the city.
Yes.
You worked with the city, the Downtown Development Association.
Some of our members decided they wanted to participate with the plantings, the planters that the city built. These were new planters, and they needed advice. The city needed some advice as to what to plant in them, and just
Sure.
how to go about doing it. And so some of our master gardeners worked to get that organized, to hopefully train some of the store owners, because they're the ones who essentially end up taking care of these.
Oh, do they? I didn't
Yes,
know who did that.
yes,
They look
uh-huh.
great. So
Yeah.
they're on the watering team.
They are, so they had to be trained to kind of get an idea, know what to plant, what to
Uh-huh.
put in them, and so that was something we did for several years. We helped them get that organized. Yeah, that was a city beautification thing, and I think it's been pretty successful.
Good. Well, I think it
Yeah,
is too. Between that and the art, it's a beautiful
Yeah. Mhm.
addition. And the county. Now, let's back up.
Okay.
Explain to me how the county is involved in the Beltrami County. We talked about the University of Minnesota
Yes.
extension, but the county's somehow involved in your program as well.
Well, what extension really is of course it's the University of Minnesota extending out primarily into greater Minnesota, and in order to do that, the universities form a partnership with the individual counties.
Mhm.
So the counties put some funding into the program. Now, our county has chosen to, for example, provide an extension office, which is at the fairgrounds. Our county has also opted to provide a part-time 4-H
What is that?
coordinator. 4-H?
Oh, 4-H.
Yeah, 4-H coordinator.
Uh-huh.
And the county also participates by providing a part-time staff person for the office. And she is there, Gina is there, I think, Monday through Thursday. And she is
What
there.
kind of things does she do for you?
Oh, well, she
for
was
your organization?
she was wonderful help when it came to our spring guard party. She helped me copy off stuff, and she answers phones, and she hands out literature, and
Okay. So she's part of the
routes
team.
questions. She absolutely so.
Okay.
So our county does participate. We do not have a county educator at this time. We would love to have one, but at this point in time we don't. So.
What would that be like?
Well, for one thing, having an educator, a county educator in your county, it makes it so much easier to get the help. For example, I'll refer back to Clark Montgomery, who was our last.
Who was originally here.
Clark was a specialist in agriculture, and so he ran many programs that had to do with helping the farmers in our area. Plus, he also, of course, was the master gardener go-to person.
Okay.
So
you had local backup of
absolutely,
information.
yes. I mean, I spent
And
many times on the phone with him.
Plus, he was actively doing things in the community.
Yes.
Yeah, I bet that was good.
And we do
While
miss
we're
him.
talking about the county, Becky, now you guys organize part of the county fair every
We
year.
do.
What part do you do?
Well, of course, we're in charge of the hort and egg section, horticulture, agriculture section, or that wing. And we are responsible for getting it organized so that, say for example, Louis, if you had a pumpkin you wanted to show off and maybe hope to get a blue ribbon on, you could bring it into the fair, and our department would be where you would bring it.
All right. You would vet it and say, sorry, that pumpkin
And didn't cut it.
didn't make it.
Take it back home.
Take
No.
that one off. That's pumpkin pie at best, right?
But it's a big job because
Boy, I bet it
the
is.
fair.
How long does the fair even go on?
Well, the fair
It's like-
starts actually on a Wednesday, and it goes from a Wednesday through a Sunday. And we have to have this thing staffed all the time.
all the time, and
Pretty
all of
much.
the organization of how you're gonna, because there must be more guys with pumpkins than just me coming in, and
Well-
lots of other things.
Well,
right?
but our goal though is to get as much interest as possible. We want people to bring things in.
Good.
Because it's an educational experience that's just beyond compare. But our week actually starts on Monday. Monday we're in there setting it up, putting everything in place, cleaning it up. Tuesday we decorate it, and our theme this year is rockin' with the oldies, so we're going to have some fun with that. Did you do rock and roll when you were, sure you did, didn't you? You're too young for that.
No, I guess I kind of did. I was an engineering student,
So you
struggling,
weren't
and so I
into-
was a nerd.
You
know.
were a nerd
Yeah,
at that.
yeah.
Have you gotten rid of that? Are you still
I've still
nerdish?
got a couple of
Well, okay, we're having some fun with this.
characteristics.
For example, I want you to know I made a poodle skirt the other day, so we're going to have some of these things on, you know,
You're gonna
fun
wear
face.
this for the week
No,
at the
I'm not
fair?
wearing it. I'm not wearing it. It's going to be on a mannequin, but we're having some things displayed that are from those days.
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll. But anyway, so that's what we're doing, and then on Wednesday,
What's the date of the fair? Let's remind
oh
people.
golly,
I can't remember.
I can't remember. I don't have my dates in front of me. It's
It's
the
on
last
the-
part of July.
Of the last part of July.
Last part of July, and
The
into
county
that
fair,
first,
right
into-
up on 71.
into that first. So I'm going to make a stab at
What
it.
is a poodle skirt?
Haven't you ever seen a poodle skirt?
Nope.
Oh goodness, well see now.
I've led a sheltered life.
You have.
You
So
know,
no, you have to come
down
up
there
to
in
the fair.
Kentucky, they didn't have these fancy
This was a big
things.
deal back in the 50s and early 60s. Was you had that was the style.
Oh,
Was you
okay.
had to have a poodle skirt, and it was just this fanned out. Most of them were made out of felt, and they had a poodle on them, not a live one, you know, Louis.
Uh-huh.
You come and see it.
Okay, I'll have to come and see
But
it.
anyway,
I
so
hope
we'll
you wear
have
it.
we'll have all kinds of rock and roll stuff, and it's just to, you know, really what it is though. It's to generate interest.
Sure.
Just to make it fun. We want the Horton Egg section to be fun, so when people come to the fair, they'll say, "Whoa, we have to go over there and see that poodle skirt." So, you know, and then at the same token, at the same time, they'll see the dahlias and the cucumbers and all these other wonderful things.
So they do both edibles as well as floral.
Yes,
kind of
we
stuff.
do. We do arrangements.
You guys do all of that.
scarecrows, and in fact, we do garden photography,
Okay.
and so it's
Wow.
it's a big deal.
All right.
And a lot of organization goes into it. Every year we
I
have to
bet.
tweak it a little bit, you know, and make sure that information that gets out there is all correct. And so
I've
it's
been advised to continually change your strategy to keep the deer away. So it sounds like this is kind of the inverse of it.
that's right. It is.
We're going to take a break. Thanks for joining us here on Inside Bemidji. I'm Lou Crenshaw. We do this program Inside Bemidji every Wednesday evening at 6:30, showcasing people and organizations who are working to make our community an even better place. And tonight, if you've just joined us, and I hope you are going to stick around, we're talking about the Beltrami County Master Gardeners Program with Becky Livermore. And we're having a lively conversation and a good one. But we're going to be talking next about growing food. So stick around because that's a subject we're all interested in.
Eating.
Eating. Well,
Eating,
first you
yes.
gotta. But anyway, Becky, you were talking about your horticultural section at the fair, and you got the scarecrows and the arrangements and the florals. But you also talked a lot about growing food, and
Yes.
so let's go back from the aspect of the master gardeners. Is that a lot of what people want to hear about, talk
Yes.
about?
Yes,
Get advice
absolutely.
on?
Absolutely. I think we've especially noticed in these later years that more people want to grow something to eat. And I think there are several reasons for this. I think though that one of them is definitely convenience. And the fact that it's easier to go into your garden and get your green beans than to get in the car and drive to the market or whatever. If you have them out in your tomatoes out in the patio, you can just go out there and pick your fresh tomato and bring it
Right,
in,
beautiful.
and you know. But that's only a minor part of that convenience. I think by and large, people want to eat fresh food because it tastes so much better.
Yes.
And I'll ask you, have you ever eaten fresh corn on the cob that's been in the garden and 5 minutes later it's in the pot and
Well,
5 minutes later you're eating it?
Certainly within an hour.
Well, I mean
Yeah,
there's nothing like
Yeah, I
it.
have. I was talking about my grandfather's garden, and yes, we had fresh tomatoes and fresh corn, and late into the year he'd have kale and very late things, and he was always in a race to have edible corn by the 4th of July. Now he wasn't in Bemidji. He was in
Obviously,
Kentucky.
yes.
Yeah.
We're lucky to have ours in August.
But they would have lettuces under glass, what they call
sure.
cold frames.
Yes,
And
yes.
my grandmother was German, and she loved this what they called Kentucky bib lettuce.
Oh.
And she'd make this German.
Sweet and sour, I bet.
Yeah, actually, she would sneak a little hot bacon grease. in it,
Oh,
you know, with the vinegar.
everything's
and-
better with bacon.
Yeah,
I hate
well.
to say that.
But anyway, growing food is a big subject, and of course, this thing about organic and knowing what chemicals is in your food. A lot of people are more and more. I don't want to know, concern's not the word, but they want to be aware of it.
Absolutely.
Right?
And when you grow it in your own garden,
You know
what's on it. Or you know what isn't on it.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, to be more exact. You know that it isn't sprayed with all these pesticides, and you just feel a lot better about eating it.
Sure.
So-
You know, I like to cook, and I cook a lot, and I
yes.
buy a lot of fresh vegetables. But I've taken to things that you can do it with, like tomatoes. I actually wash them in soapy water
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
rinse them really well. Now, you know, I'd never do that with something like broccoli because I probably didn't
Well, how
get
would
it
you?
out.
It's
That's what I
pretty
mean.
tough.
You can't
It's
get
hard
it
to
out.
do that.
But anything that I can wash,
Mm-hmm.
I actually wash it in soap and water now because you never know where it's coming
Yeah,
from.
yeah, that's right.
These days, things can come in from around the world.
And they do.
And they do. Mhm.
And I
When I lived in Wilmington, Delaware, we had the Port of Wilmington, and one of its biggest sources of revenue was their specialty was unloading fresh food from around the world and distributing it on the East Coast because they had the the refrigeration and the
Right.
quick movements and all that. So yeah, food's coming in from around the world.
so
And I hope it's not coming from China because,
Oh.
sorry, but they're all poisoning one another over there.
well,
right?
I try not to buy anything from there. In fact, a lot of garlic comes from there. So make sure if you buy garlic, that you know which country it's coming from. It should, your grocery
No.
stores usually tell you
Okay.
where it's coming from.
That's a
But
good suggestion.
But anyway, I think that's why people want to grow their own. And you know what, Louis? It is fun.
There you
Honest,
go.
it is. It's fun to go out there. I've been growing some lettuce on the deck in this container that's about this long and about this wide. No, maybe a little wider than that. And it is now up about like this, and I'm soon going to be starting to snip some of it off.
Yeah.
And every day I go out there, and I mean, it is just shooting up because of, it's finally said, hey, it's warming a little, now we can come out. And it's just a fun thing. I mean, it's just, it just really is. I'm just a little pleased, aren't I?
No, you're exactly right. I'll tell you my story. That I used to live at one time in a townhouse. So, there's walls like
Right.
this, there's no ground anywhere. But I had these 3 little cherry tomato plants,
Yeah.
like right by the front door. And I'd take my little plastic cup and my scissors out, and I'd boom, 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 and then take them in and wash and put them in a salad.
Yes, wasn't that a
They'd
great
still
feeling?
be warm, and
Yes.
just 3 little tomato plants gave me the same feeling you're
That's
talking
right.
about with
That's
your
right.
lettuce.
And so,
It was fun. It was
It's
fun
hard to
have 'em.
explain the feeling of gardening if you haven't done it. So
Yeah,
I guess
I guess
my encouragement is that everybody should try. Just to try
There you
it.
go.
And again, we'll help you, Master Gardeners will help you get started. We'll give you some information, or we'll help you if you haven't gardened before. We help gardeners of all talents and all.
Even a guy with a couple of cherry tomato plants.
Even you, Louis. Yep, even you.
Well, let's talk about how you do that. I want to talk
Okay.
about your connections into the community.
Okay.
And we talked a little bit about all of the work that you do at the county fair. And we talked a little bit about some examples like helping the downtown with their baskets. Those are great connections to the community. I want to hear when you say you'll help people about the helpline service that you
Yes.
do, because that's one of your major ways
It
of
is.
connecting, right?
It is, I think.
Okay.
From-
Let's tell people the number.
Okay, do you
We're going
remember?
to tell it to you more than once, so if you don't have a pencil, but if you do, it's 444-7916, the Master Gardeners Helpline. 444-7916.
Now, we have to make sure they understand they're not going to get a real live person here.
Becky will not be standing by.
I'm not waiting.
But she will get back to you.
So what happens?
So you can call at 2 in the morning, don't worry.
Don't you? That's right, because I won't answer you at 2 in the
It'll be on
morning.
the recorder, I thought.
So
Anyway,
what happens?
seriously, the helpline,
Right.
how's it work?
Well, when you call that number, they will. This little voice will say for you to leave your name, your phone number, and briefly state your problem. Okay? Then,
I've got aphids.
that's briefly,
That's
and that's
briefly.
good. Okay. So then the person who happens to have the help, what do we call it again?
The helpline.
Line,
Helpline.
who has it for that week, will call at his or her convenience, of course, you know. But usually when I have it, when it's my week, I call every day to find out if someone has left a message. And I would say, you know, give them you know, 12 hours maybe, you know, to get back in touch with you. But we will call you back and we'll work through this question that you may have. You know. So I think it's a great service. We do it from, I'm trying to think, April through October maybe. It's not the whole year, but
April through
the,
October.
through the growing
Yeah.
season primarily. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So-
I had help with my oak trees once when I first bought the little cabin over here. I thought they were all dying.
Oh, they must have had anthracnose or something.
Yeah, you're so smart. She knew it already. So Mary Lou Marchand came out and said, next year clean up your leaves.
That's right. That's right. Cleanliness is next
year
to
clean up your
something.
leaves. I haven't had the problem since.
That's as simple as that. That's pretty easy.
Yeah, I guess.
You know, though, unfortunately, most of us want to be able to spray with something, you know. Can't I just spray it with something? But, you know, that isn't always the answer to everything.
Yeah, that's right up there with, don't you have a pill for that?
It's precisely.
Can
When
I
we
just
heard that,
take a
my husband
pill
would hear that.
And
Yes.
I'll be better. So we talked about the helpline. Anything else we need to hear about that? Somebody will call you back.
Someone will call you back, yes.
And
And,
don't
oh,
worry
yes.
about any kind of questions.
Well,
If you
I was-
guys are backed up with help down in the city.
That we are. We'll
right?
We'll help you figure it out. Although, of course, there are times we can be stumped. But to remember that there's no such thing as a dumb question. If you've got a question, 9 chances out of 10 somebody else is wondering about the same thing. So don't, you know, if you have a question, call and ask. We'll help you.
Great.
We'll do what we can.
There you are, 444-7916, the Master Gardener's helpline. No question will be left untried.
No stone left unturned.
That's
That's the
it.
same kind of thing.
So you also do this program on Chat About,
Yeah,
right?
we do. Kathy Peck and I have been on Chat About for, we're on now the second Monday of the month.
Actually, I wrote this down. 12:30 p.m.
Yes.
So at lunchtime on the second Monday of the month on
Yes.
Chat About.
That's the same day as our Master Gardener meetings, and we primarily did that. Kathy and I worked this out with Kelly Stone, because then Kathy and I remember. You know, it's hard to remember doing all these things
Well, now I'm
sometimes.
downtown, but oh yeah, we do Chat About with Kelly.
Oh, yes, Chat About time. And that has been a wonderful opportunity. I'll tell you what, we really want to thank them, Paul Bunyan Broadcasting, because they have
Thank you.
They have given us such a wonderful opportunity to meet people, and a lot of people listen to that, and people can call in questions.
Oh, really? So it's a call-in show?
Well, sort of, yeah. We want the questions before we go on air, though. Because otherwise it's a little difficult. You know, we only have 15 to 20 minutes, and you know
Okay.
how fast that goes.
Sure, I guess
And there
so.
are 4 of us talking all at the same time sometimes. I don't know who's listening, but
Okay.
4 are talking. And so if you have a question, call it in. We were on, of course, just as last week, and we had at least 4 or 5 questions.
That's great.
And so, you know, it's wonderful. It's a great
Okay.
opportunity for us.
So Chat About, 12:30 p.m., that's lunchtime, the second Monday of the month. Is that
That's right.
before or after your meeting?
Before. Our meetings are at 5.
Okay.
So.
I don't know why I asked that, but it just seemed important at the time.
Oh, okay.
And what else do you guys do? Okay, you write articles, because I see, the list of articles
That's
on
right.
the web page that have been published in both the Pioneer and also in the Byline.
Right. That's
Pretty
on a weekly
amazing.
basis.
Okay, you do that every week.
Every week, and again, that's the wonderful way. We also give them to the byline, and if the byline has room, they will also use them.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've seen them in
It's one,
Byline.
you know, it's up to them. Sometimes they're a little short in space, so they don't always use them. But the Pioneer always includes them. So we're thankful we have that way of keeping in touch with our audience.
How many years has this been going on, that you
I
were putting
can't-
things in the newspaper?
I can't remember.
But
It's
would it
been
have
such a long
since,
time.
Since the mid-80s when you guys got
Well,
going,
yes,
huh?
you know, that's one of the first things that I did when I came out of my training was I volunteered with a group of 4 or 5 other master gardeners, and we wrote for the Pioneer. And it was then shortly thereafter though that I started writing for the Byline, and that's where I got my Becky's Bloomers deal, because I started writing for the Byline.
Oh, that was your header?
That was and that was my husband's idea. But anyway, I wrote for them for about 13 years. But we've written for the Pioneer for just a long, long time. So we've established a good working relationship with the Pioneer.
Well, they're unbelievable, the breadth of all of the articles, and a
Oh, we
lot of
cover
them
a
are
lot of stuff.
available on the, if you search,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of those articles are right there on a lot of different subjects. You do a garden party, and
We
you
do.
garden tours.
Yes.
What are they about?
Well, the garden party, we did one this spring. It was in, I believe it was in April.
Yeah, that's
We
good.
call it a garden party because we don't want to call it a seminar. I mean, how dull, you know? I mean, we're not dull. We're fun, you know?
Okay.
Okay, so we didn't want to call it a garden seminar or garden workshop because nobody wants to work. They want to come and have a good time. So that's what we call it, a garden party.
Okay.
And we have, of course, vendors. I'll bet we had 14 vendors
Oh, and that's
all
what-
around the perimeter.
Is that you have vendors who come there and talk about their products?
Well, they sell their products.
Okay.
They're all garden-related things.
Where do you hold this?
We held it at the Evangelical Free Church this last time, which is south.
Oh, yeah, sure. South,
on
when you
the
head
way-
south, it's up on the right on the hill
Yes,
there.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's where we had it this year.
Uh-huh.
And we've been trying different sites, but
You
that
do
one
this
worked
every
well.
year?
No, we do this every
Every other year.
Yeah.
And so you've got a list of vendors who know you're going to be there,
That's
and
right.
they come back, and
So it's great. In fact, we even had worm poop there this year.
I beg your pardon.
Worm castings.
Okay, well, that's
Which is
probably good for something.
It's what it is. It's great for plants. But anyway, okay. So that's this year we did that. Next year we won't do that garden party. We'll do a garden. We'll probably organize garden tours.
Yeah, I've heard of a garden tour, so you kind of alternate.
We
them.
do.
And a
We
garden tour, you go around the city and visit different.
We do. We say, is there
People
anyone
who has an open
who's
garden.
a wonderful gardener out here? How would you like to have 150 people travel through your gardens? And you'd be surprised at the number of people that say, yeah, I would. I'd like to have people come and look.
Yeah, why not?
So we organize that. We probably have a half a dozen and
We used to do one with kitchens in Delaware.
kitchens.
Yeah, because people, would put in these kitchens and they wanted to show them off. So
Oh, really?
yeah, and you
Oh,
do
golly, I'm
gardens.
sure. No, I
They
would
probably
not
did
be on
gardens as
that
well.
one.
Well, we live just like a block away from the Delaware Gardening Association. It was not a master gardening group, but anyway.
So you being the chef, did you have them come through your kitchen?
No. No, I didn't want to do that.
That's a
Besides-
lot of scrutiny to come through.
Yeah,
look
some
at your
people
kitchen.
just, I guess I mentioned it because you said people like to do that.
They do. Well, I
And
think
so I was always surprised that people like to do, but anyway,
Well,
gardens,
garden tours. Okay, so I've been
more
always a
common.
little bit skeptical, thinking, do people really learn from garden tours? But I think we do.
uh-huh,
And here's what happens. You think, I wonder, what can I plant in a certain site? And you think,
yes.
I wonder if it'll grow here. Well, you go on a garden tour and you see how beautifully it's growing in this garden and then that garden, and you think, wow,
Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah.
So I think it is an educational thing.
I would imagine that you see how people position things.
Oh, yes,
You know what I mean? So you've got
absolutely.
like the figure ground kind of thing,
That's
and the
right.
colors clumped together.
That's right.
The things that are seasonal, blooming, and
So there's a
all
lot to
that.
learn by looking at by
Yeah,
seeing
I would
what
imagine there
someone
would
else
be.
can do.
Imagine there
So
would be.
yes, we'll be doing that probably next summer. And what else?
I want to know about volunteers
Yeah.
and how you join,
Okay.
and what do you have to do, and
Okay.
what's it like? Are you,
Well, obviously, I think it's pretty cool because I've been in it for so long. But I think that being a master gardener is an opportunity for someone who likes to garden. Obviously, you need to like to garden.
sure.
And you need to like plants, And you need to like to eat, well, of course we all do, but it's not only being a gardener, it's having that urge to share your knowledge with someone else. You need to be able, or you want to be able to reach out and share it with your neighbor or with the person you meet in the grocery store, or, you know, it isn't only being a good gardener.
So, but being interested in gardening has got to be the basis.
Well, of course.
But what I guess I'm understanding you saying is, but on top of that, you need to want to have this knowledge and impart it and help the rest of
That's
the
right,
community
yeah.
and try and
That's right.
help other people enjoy what
The
you
same thing.
enjoy.
It isn't just a course to take on horticulture for yourself. You're taking it for yourself so you can reach out and share it with somebody else.
And do this community service part
Yes,
of it as
yeah,
well.
exactly.
So what's how do you
How do we do it?
how do you do it?
Well, back when in the old days when I took it, of course, we actually had live bodies come and give the coursework, and that was wonderful because, you could actually see them and talk to them and touch them, and, I love that. But they can't afford to do that anymore, so it's all done online. But if you'd like to be a master gardener, and we'd love to have you join our group because we're like any other organization. Our membership fluctuates.
Yeah, transition.
It
People
does,
come and
yes.
go.
We've had one point in time, we had over 40 members that were active.
Uh-huh.
Now we're down to about half of that, but it kind of comes and goes. But anyway, here's what you do. In as late as probably October of this fall, you need to make the decision so you can contact Mary Lou Marchand. She's our state contact. She lives here, obviously, and she's a part of our group, but she's the person who gets in touch with the state. She will register you, and then you will be registered for the class of the series of classes. And these classes will begin in January, and they will run until probably May.
Wintertime project.
They're all online. It's all you progress at your own speed.
Okay, so you study, take a little quiz,
That's right.
study.
And it is also kind of interactive, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this isn't, because I didn't take it that way, I don't know. The downside about it is that there is a cost. They have I think it's between $200 and $300 cost for taking this course. Now, what we have done though in the past few years is that we have been, our group has been willing to discuss a scholarship with people. So if, say for example, you decide you want to take the course, you put out your money, you take the course, you volunteer, your first year you have to volunteer 50 hours.
Okay.
And then after that, in order to stay an active master gardener, you need to volunteer 25.
From what I heard you say at the county fair, you could probably do 25 at the county fair. So that doesn't sound like a real problem.
I don't think it is, because
that and
there's
answering the helpline.
and there's such a need out there, and we keep track of our own hours. And so when you're giving a presentation, for example, you don't only count the time that you're giving the presentation, you count the time that you did the research and put the presentation together.
There you go. So if you're interested in gardening, and we all are, because we're interested in eating, so we're interested in somebody doing gardening, but if you like to do gardening yourself, then, and if you especially like to do a community service, you can learn a lot of in-depth information on gardening online, have a nice winter project, maybe get a scholarship for the cost of $200 to $300, and contact Mary Lou Marchand before October, who will sign you up. They'd love to have you, and they're doing a lot of neat things around town. How'd I do? With
that
the
was
summary.
You put it in a nutshell. That was terrific. Yes.
I paid her to say that.
Not much. Not nearly enough.
So I hope you've enjoyed this little conversation. There's plenty more to learn about master gardening. Go online. There's a lot of information online. There's a lot of articles that they have written. You'll see their articles in the Pioneer. A lot of them are online. There are 20 people and they'd love to have you join them and join up with the Master Gardeners right here. And don't forget the helpline, 444-7916.
Come to the fair, bring some plants and vegetables and flowers to the fair. That would be that Wednesday of Fair Week, and I'm not sure, but I think it would be about the 1st of August. But
Late
check your
July,
calendar.
around the 1st of
Yes.
August. And don't forget to ask about the poodle skirt.
That's right, and I will not have it on.
Well,
Just
just so we get to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's always a pleasure to think that someone is enjoying this show as much as we do. Thanks to Upstream TV, we do Inside Bemidji every Wednesday night at 6:30. I'm your host, Lou Crenshaw, and if you've been with us, we've been having a really good time talking about the Beltrami County Master Gardener Program. Becky Livermore, who has 27 years in master gardening, has been helping us with that, and thanks for joining us.
have a wonderful gardening season, by the way.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, that's it.
See you
Good
at the
night.
fair.
See you at the fair. Thanks for coming.
It's
Becky.
been a pleasure, Louis.
It was good.